Hey, buddy, watch this.
Hello, the name is Regis Kilbin, and the game is Hearthstone. And today I'm going to take a look at my top 10 Hunter cards. So these are the cards to me that are the best in the class, and what I mean by best is not necessarily the most powerful. They wouldn't always just win in a fight. So for instance, Webspinner wouldn't beat Gazrilla in a fight on an empty board, but I do think Webspinner is a better card than Gazrilla because it's played in more decks. It is better for its mana cost. It's impactful and important to the meta as far as Hunter is concerned. It's got a history. So to me, it would make the list, even though Gazrilla is certainly a lot more fun and a lot more exciting. So best doesn't mean the best. It just means the most important or impactful or valuable cards in the Hunter set. So that said, I want to go ahead and jump right into my top 10. Up first is, of course, that tiny little Webspinner. This 1 mana 1/1 doesn't sound like much on its own, but it has a really nice death rattle. Anytime it dies, you add a random beast card to your hand. So, of course, Hunter has a couple different ways to benefit from beast synergies with various cards. So not only does Webspinner get you off to a nice, consistent early game curve, which is really important for Hunter, it also helps you take advantage of those beast synergies, not only with the body itself, but also thanks to the death rattle, which not only draws you a card that isn't in your deck, which is nice, but also gives you an extra beast. Sometimes which can get you things, like a Savannah Highmane or a Gazrilla or a King Crush, totally for free. So that's always a nice little benefit. Webspinner's been a very important early game drop for Hunters for a very long time. That's why it rounds out the top of my list, despite how tiny and frail it might be as a minion. So moving on to the number 9 spot is a card with the name of Hunter's Mark. This 0 mana spell doesn't sound like much since it only costs 0 mana, but it's very important in that it changes a minion's health to 1. This basically allows you to kill almost anything in the game very quickly and very efficiently. In fact, ultimately efficiently, since it only costs 0 mana and requires a single card. Of course, that allows you to send stuff like a Webspinner into a Molten Giant and make the trade for free. You can also combo it, of course, with Unleash the Hounds, which will summon a Hound and allow you to clear any big taunt or threat that might be in your way. You can even use it with something like a Wild Pyromancer and control Hunters to put a Wild Pyro out and instantly kill it with a single cast of Hunter's Mark. So this card combos really nicely with a few different things Hunter does well. Plus, Hunter likes going to the enemy face, and sometimes taunts will get in the way, and Hunter's Mark allows you to send 1 damage to clear a taunt instead of having to use something like a kill command to waste all your damage, making you much more efficient as far as killing enemies is concerned. So moving on to the number 8 card, I'm going to go with Quickshot. This 2 mana spell, it does 3 damage as its base effect, but it has one nice side effect that if your hand is empty, you also get to draw a card. So 2 mana for 3 damage is pretty standard as far as base removal spells in Hearthstone are concerned. You've got things like Frostbolt or Dark Bomb that look very similar to this. But this is a really important side effect, particularly in face-style Hunter decks that typically have a very low mana curve and unload their hand full of cards very quickly, meaning it's very likely they'll be out of cards quite quickly in the game, so they need card draw that doesn't slow them down. So this still allows you to do damage, which is your ultimate goal as Hunter, without slowing you down. So when you draw this and you're able to keep it in your hand until it's the final card, it's very frustrating for opponents because it gives you another out, another way to find damage, another way to kill them without really making any sacrifice because you're quite okay with doing 3 damage for 2 mana anyway. So normally this might be hitting the face in a dire last-ditch effort, but sometimes you can use it to clear a minion just efficiently as well as a base spell. So Quickshot does a couple different things well, and it's found its way into a number of different Hunter decks, and people seem to keep liking it, and I hate when I see it played against me, which is always a good sign of a card's strength. So moving on to the number 7 card, we actually have yet another removal / damage spell. We'll look at the golden version. This is Kill Command. This time it's a 3 mana damage spell. At its base, it only does 3 damage, which certainly doesn't look very good compared to Quickshot, since it's 1 mana more expensive. But the real key with Kill Command is that if you have a beast on the board, you deal 5 damage instead. So when you have that Webspinner, or more commonly maybe an Iron Beak Owl out on the board, or any of a number of different beasts that might be in your deck, this will let you do 5 damage for 3 mana, which is actually incredibly efficient and ranks among the most efficient pure damage spells in the game. So Fireball, for instance, is 4 mana for 6 damage. So this one's actually slightly more efficient than Fireball, even though it does 1 less damage. So you can really combo this nicely at 3 mana. You can do like 2 of these in a Hero Power for 8 mana for 12 damage, which is nuts, in a single turn for 8 mana. And this is what allows you to finish off opponents, much like Quickshot and Last Ditch Efforts, that last little scrap of damage you need to put together to kill them, and that's why it's called Kill Command, and it certainly shows up in a ton of different decks. Even sometimes in decks that don't have a lot of beasts or don't rely on synergies, you'll still see a Kill Command with 1 or 2 beasts like an Ironbeak Owl just to get that finishing blow in. So moving on to the 6th best card on my list. The number 6 and the number 5 cards are both traps. If we can find them here. Up first, we actually have Explosive Trap. This 2-mana trap is, of course, a secret that when your hero is attacked, you deal 2 damage to all enemies. All enemies means both minions and the enemy hero, of course. So Explosive Trap does a couple things well. It's really good against low-cost, aggressive board rush type decks like maybe Zoo or Fellow Face Hunters or Aggro Shamans, and that it can clean up a lot of cheap little minions without taking additional damage. So you get free board clear out of Explosive Trap, but also just dealing 2 damage to the enemy face for 2 mana sometimes is really quite nice, particularly when you get an Explosive Trap off of a card like Mad Scientist that plays the Explosive Trap for free. So really you're kind of getting 2 damage for 0 mana. So even if it's not timed well enough to kill off the enemy board, just getting that 2 extra unavoidable damage sometimes will make the difference, because your opponent also has to play around traps because they don't know what it is. So Explosive Trap will often find its way into more aggressive hunters that are about killing your opponents, but sometimes even mid-range or control-style hunters will still run 1 Explosive Trap just for that extra damage and board clear potential that it offers. So this has really been a key card in Hunter lists for a very long time, and it's certainly why it fits into my list. At the number 5 slot, we have 1 more trap. This one is Freezing Trap, another 2-mana secret, of course. This time, anytime an enemy minion attacks, you return that minion to its owner's hand, and it costs 2 additional mana. So Freezing Trap, of course, is also very popular in a variety of Hunter lists. It doesn't show up as often in face-style Hunter decks. Typically finds its way into more beast or mid-range or control-style Hunter decks. I gave it the edge over Explosive Trap because in the past, with mid-range Hunters' popularity, this one was just a little more popular in my mind, and I do think can have a bigger direct impact on the board than can Explosive Trap in control-style battles particularly. So they're pretty equal, I think, if you want to rank Explosive Trap ahead of Freezing Trap. I wouldn't argue too hard, but for me, the tempo advantage that Freezing Trap can provide is just so important and so impactful. If you Freezing Trap, say like a Piloted Shredder even, for instance, they spent 4 mana to play that Piloted Shredder. They got nothing out of it, and it costs 6 mana to replay it before it can attack again. So basically you're stalling 2 turns and requiring 10 total mana for them to get 1 Piloted Shredder attack in. Freezing Trap, on the other hand, costs you 2 mana at the most, and you likely played it off of a Mad Scientist, so you can see the 2 mana for the 10 mana punishment is a huge tempo gain, and just really powerful in certain matchups, particularly slower control-style matchups that Hunter can sometimes struggle with. So I love the impact and the power that Freezing Trap has, and that's to me why it ranks at the number 5 spot. So moving on to the number 4 spot is a card called Unleash the Hounds. This is yet another 3-mana spell. Hunter actually has quite a few powerful ones. This one, each enemy minion that's on the board allows you to summon a 1/1 Hound with charge. So there's 7 enemy minions. You get 7 1/1 Hounds for only 3 mana, and they all have charge, so you get like a 7/7 charging minion for only 3 mana. That's crazy. More often, though, it'll probably just be 3 or 4 enemy minions. But still, you get 4 bodies for only 3 mana. They have charge. They can clear enemy boards as needed. You can combo with like Hunter's Mark to clear a really big taunt without taking face damage or sacrificing an important minion. You can combo with things like Animal Companion's Leok to just do a ton of extra damage. There are a variety of ways to use Unleash the Hounds, and that flexibility and the raw power and the reactiveness of the card makes it so strong and so viable, particularly in a meta nowadays where there are a lot of little 1/1 minions to counter with Unleash the Hounds. This card just keeps getting better and better. And historically, Unleash the Hounds has been nerfed or changed a variety of times. And when a card has been nerfed that regularly but is still good and still important to the meta, you know it's a good one, and it deserves a very high-ranking spot on this list, and that to me is why it's the number 4 card. But it's not a top 3 card. We got 3 more to go. The first of which is Eaglehorn Bow. This is my 3rd best Hunter card. This is really the weapon that defines the Hunter class. I considered sneaking Glaive Zuka onto the list. It's probably my number 11 card because it's also great for Hunters. But Eaglehorn Bow is undeniably good. For 3 mana, you get a 3/2, which admittedly is the same as a Fiery War Axe and costs an extra mana, so it may not sound that great just from an efficiency standpoint. But the effect on the Eaglehorn Bow is so good. Whenever a friendly secret is revealed, gain +1 durability. So it combos really nicely with secrets, which are very important to Hunter as a class. So this can turn into a 3/4 or a 3/5 weapon in some instances, right? Even a 3/3 makes it very good. Doing damage is important as Hunter, so whether you get this in the early game to offer a little bit of board control or in the late game just as direct damage that you send to the enemy face, it's great for that. It also causes even more dilemmas for opponents when it comes to secrets. They may not want to trigger a secret if you have Eaglehorn Bow up because they don't want to give you that additional charge and the extra damage. So there's kind of this waiting game or this back and forth that goes on with secrets and Eaglehorn Bow, and can sometimes force your opponents to make suboptimal plays, giving you a slight edge, and that's always very nice. So Eaglehorn Bow does a couple different things well, gives you some control and some sneakiness as far as matchups are concerned, and it's just a very strong card. Moving on to the second best Hunter card. For me, that is yet another 3 mana card. Hunter has a lot of good ones, but this time it's Animal Companion. Not only do I love the artwork on this card, but it's incredibly good. For a 3 mana spell, you get to summon a random beast companion. Now, if you don't know the beasts, those are Leok, which is a 2/4 beast that buffs all of your other minions' attack by 1. And then you've also got Misha, which is a 4/4 tank, or taunt minion, excuse me, a 4/4 with taunt, which is very good for 3 mana. And then finally you've got Huffer, a 4/2 with charge, which is yet again very good for 3 mana. So all of those minions are overcosted for 3 mana. In other words, their stats are better and their effects are better than you typically get with a 3 mana card. So it's very hard to be disappointed with Animal Companion. Plus, Leok usually gives you a little bit of extra damage depending on what's on board. Huffer gives you a lot of extra damage regardless of what's on board. And Misha can be very awkward on turn 3 for opponents to deal with, and typically gets to attack once or twice herself. So there's very little downside to Animal Companion, and there's a lot of potential upside. And being able to coin this out on turn 2 or even play it on turn 3 on an empty board is usually enough to turn a game in your favor. So a card that's that impactful and that good, it's hard to deny it belongs very near the top of this list. But I actually have one more card that to me is the best Hunter card in the game. And goodness, I think you could probably even make an argument it's one of the better cards in the game. And that is the Savannah Highmane. This 6 mana minion is an absolute beast to deal with, and I do have the intention of a pun there. It is a beast card, and it is an absolute monster to fight against. It's a 6/5, which in its own right is very scary. It's a nice health pool that denies 4 attack minions like Piloted Shredder. It's an even scarier attack score that can absolutely threaten anyone. If it gets to attack once or twice, you're usually going to win the game. It trades effectively, and then even when you manage to deal with this hulking giant of a beast, you still have to contend with the 2/2 hyenas that it summons. It summons 2/2/2 beasts as well. So in total, that means you're getting 10/9 in stats for 6 mana, and that's all spread over 3 bodies, which is really the dream. It's a way overcosted card in regards to stats, but you're also getting it spread out so it's even harder to deal with. It's a little bit susceptible to silence, but not really, because then you still just get a 6/5 for 6, which isn't that bad. This card is a nightmare. If you get it out on 6, your opponents usually have a very difficult time dealing with it unless they have like the perfect spot removal answer for it. It has beast synergies. It fits the top end of Hunter's curve so perfectly. It shows up in every mid-range version of a deck. It's straight up better than 6-mana legendaries like Cairn, and it's really better than 6-mana epics like Piloted Sky Golem. It's frankly just kind of the most valuable 6-drop in the game as far as raw stats and raw value are concerned. It's just the ultimate minion in a sense. It should honestly be a legendary because having 2 of these in your deck is simply unfair. So Savannah Highmane typically finds its way into everything but the most aggressive face hunters because it's just so good on value and so strong and fits the hunter class quite perfectly. And it's really the legendary for hunters because legendaries and hunter aren't that great on average, but Savannah Highmane makes up for that deficit because it's just so darn good. To me, this is the best card that Hunter has access to. Savannah Highmane, the best Hunter card in Hearthstone. So there you have it. That's my top 10 list for the best Hunter cards in Hearthstone. If you think I'm crazy, let me know. If I missed a card, tell me in the comments. If I got the order all wrong, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd appreciate some discussion and some feedback on this list. So thanks so much for watching, and until next time, game on.